way that the UFC has handled Sage Northcutt has been very strange to me, because they brought him in and they dealt with all the growing pains early. They dealt with sort of letting him figure out who he is as an athlete, figure out who he is as a man, sort of grow into this role. They brought him in his teenage years and promoted him very heavily, and it was obvious that it was too much too soon. But now they're letting him go right when it's starting to really coalesce together, because he is at Team Alpha Male. He finally has a team, a world-class team around him. He kind of was a nomad for a little bit, where he was traveling between teams and couldn't decide whether he wanted to do college and all of that. Now it's really just settled that, this is my life. I'm going to train at Team Alpha Male. And we've seen it, man. He's picked a weight class. He's staying at welterweight, which is a much better fit for him long-term with his body. And we've seen just like genuine improvement from him over the last couple of fights. His last fight against Zach Otto was tremendous, just in terms of the level of growth. And you can really see him now starting to use those natural, just physical gifts that he has in a really positive way. Letting him go now is rough, man. Because UFC did all the dirty work. The UFC did all the hard work to build him up, and now someone else is about to go make him into a star. This feels like either Bellator or one championship, one of those two. And I would actually put money on one championship. I think he would do very well over there. He is his demeanor, the way he is so pleasant and so non-confrontational, just in terms of the lead up to fights. That's very much in the one championship way. That's how they kind of like their fighters over there. And he's the stereotypical American, right? Like he's the blonde, blue-eyed surfer guy from the West. Like, I don't know. I feel like that would really hit over there well, and they could match him up against people he'll look impressive against. I think Sage Northcutt is about to get paid.
About tonight, Joseph Benavidez made a pretty impassioned plea for the flyweight division. I don't know if you got to see that, after his performance. Can you help us out? I mean, it seems like it's kind of murky. What's going on? What's not going on? You do have a title fight coming up, but it sounds like the division maybe. Help us understand what's going on with flyweight.
Yeah, it is murky. It is murky right now. Obviously we still have fights going on. Cejudo is going to fight Dillashaw, and we'll just see how this thing plays out. That division is a division that I battled for a very long time and defended and said, "Are you people crazy? Well, how do you not like these fights? How do you not like the champ?" But it never really stuck. It never really became a popular division. So even with such a dominant champion, you know what I mean? Even with an incredibly dominant champion, it didn't do it.
So is it safe to say it is going away at some point, or
are
you're still kind of...
anybody else ask questions here, or are you running this whole thing?
I'm kind of running it.
I'm just checking.
That was the last thing I had for tonight.
We'll see how this thing plays out. But there's guys, even if it goes away, guys like Benavidez and guys like that could move up a weight class too, because a lot of those guys cut a lot of weight.
When you say we'll see what happens, is this if Cejudo wins? It keeps going, or if he there's no plan for anything right now. This fight's going to happen with Dillashaw and Cejudo, and then we'll see where we go from there. Have you been surprised with ratings with the flyweight division of how they've gone?
What do you mean?
Do you think they'd be higher, bigger interest with Demetrius with such a great champion?
Yeah, you would think so. But it never happened. They never pulled ratings. They never pulled pay-per-views. It wasn't, wasn't what it should have been, in my opinion.
What do you think it was that kind of?
I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, to say that people who are true fight fans don't like smaller guys or don't like. I mean, Demetrius Johnson got to a point where he would literally go out and make himself finish people. The guy was talented and everything else, but just never stuck.
How did that go down with Demetrius leaving and going to ONE FC? Was that
good?
We don't have FS1 back here, but I just want to ask you to clarify. I said on the post show that you said you want to see Khabib and Ferguson and Conor and Poirier. Is that?
No. So they said, "What's going to happen?" I said, "Nothing."
He is interested in doing a rematch between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, and it seems like there's some momentum here to do this fight, and I think this potentially could be a mistake for the UFC. Now, hear me out here for a second, because on paper, this rematch would be awesome. This would be a great fight for the fans. Two guys willing to stand and slug it out, and clearly Dustin Poirier, a much more evolved fighter than the one that fought Conor McGregor at featherweight. But hear me out for a second here. Conor McGregor fighting Dustin Poirier, I think, is a risky fight. You can't have Conor McGregor losing 2 straight fights. First off, Dustin Poirier been a lot more active in the last couple of years, getting some really notable wins. You know, the Eddie Alvarez rematch, he knocked out Justin Gaethje, just had some really good performances, and he's also got that threat of the ground game. You know, he does have 7 submission victories in his career. Now, granted, I should point out his last win by submission was way back in 2012, so, you know, Poirier hasn't really been using those tools still that much, but it's still a threat nonetheless. But I just think there are other options here for Conor McGregor right now, because in my eyes, you need to get Conor McGregor a win in his next fight, or at least a fight that he should be the favorite heading into the matchup. And to me, I look at the Nate Diaz trilogy as a fight that you do right now and that you cash in on, because while Diaz does have the threat of the ground game, Conor McGregor beat him in the rematch. I know it was a close fight, but he did defeat him. There's also the fact that Nate's been really inactive, so McGregor has that advantage as well, although McGregor very inactive himself. But I think that's more of an even matchup, the Diaz and McGregor fight, as opposed to a Poirier and McGregor fight. The other option as well that I'd look at, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I'm not sure why Dana White shot that matchup down so much, but Cerrone clearly having a good ground game. But here's the thing, Cerrone getting up there in age, has a lot of damage throughout his career. I mean, we forget before his last fight, he lost that fight to Leon Edwards. He took that beating from Darren Till. Cowboy has some wear and tear. And again, moving down to 55 at his age is a tough thing to do. As we see when fighters move down a weight class as they get older, it's a lot more difficult to do. So I think that would play to McGregor's advantage. And the thing you don't want to do here is what the UFC did with Ronda Rousey. Okay, hear me out here for a second. So Ronda Rousey gets upset by Holly Holm, and rather than giving her a layup in her next fight, they literally could have given her anyone else in the women's bantamweight division other than Amanda Nunes, and Ronda Rousey probably would have won, but instead they gave her arguably the best striker in the division, and Ronda Rousey loses in the first round. Her stock goes down the tube, and she becomes irrelevant. I'm not saying that's what would happen with McGregor here if he loses this fight, but certainly 2 straight losses for Conor McGregor would not only take a huge hit to his stock, but to the UFC, because you need Conor McGregor as a star in your promotion, as someone you can sell. So I think there are better matchups out there for Conor McGregor next. I think the UFC has to be careful in who they match him up against, and I think Poirier is too dangerous of a fight right now. Get McGregor a win, get McGregor a fight back in the win column here, a fight that he should be able to win, and then match him up with your Dustin Poiriers, with your Tony Fergusons. But right now is not the right time to do the Poirier rematch.
I don't know if it's prepared, but I don't think he has the skill sets anymore to be competitive at that level. And that level being someone like Tito, that might, I love Tito and I think he's a great warrior, but he might be a step or two below some of the top 205ers on the planet right now.
Sure.
So I just don't think he's there now. I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think if he sparred every day, he'd be there. Maybe he would look a little better if he sparred a lot. Maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe the sparring would have been too much for him. But he didn't look like he should be in a cage fighting. He just didn't. And I don't know if it's a preparation or not, or just it's not there anymore at 49 years old, almost 49.
Now, when you look at that fight, though, and as a guy that has trained Chuck from his youth all the way up to world championships, do you have any insight on how he was preparing for this fight in terms of, was he able to put in 2 workouts a day? Was he doing daily doubles, or was his body just, was it too run down? Was it hard for him to do that?
I wasn't there for this camp at all, but if I was to guess, and I know Chuck, I don't think he was doing, the workouts that we used to do when he was coming up, or even when he was at the top. I saw more video of him like recuperating, doing the after fight. They had the cryo this and this kind of this and the chiropractor over here, So I think he was doing a lot more of the recharging, recovering. Then, so he had to do a lot of that because of his age, maybe because, he's had a lot of fights, a lot of wars. But I don't know. I can't call it because I have nothing but respect for the camp that he was in.